All right, I'm lost on a take, but I don't want to be. I'm trying to get through this. So, Islam is going to whip Volkanovski. His record's not better, and his pound for pound ranking isn't higher. He's going to whip Volkanovski, and we're not disrespecting Volk. He's gonna whip Volkanovski because he's bigger than Volkanovski. The end. All right. Jon Jones is going to get whipped by Francis Ngannou. Now, Jon Jones is smaller than Francis Ngannou, so it appears to be even. It appears to be very consistent. Another debate comes out that Islam Makhachev is the most well-rounded 155-pounder ever, and he proved that in the Charles Oliveira fight when he knocked Charles down while standing on his feet. Jon Jones is the most dynamic, well-rounded fighter ever. Hard stop. Not in the light heavyweight division, not in the light that not because of one match where he caught somebody on the chin and they went down. Just a full stop. That he is known as being best and most well-rounded. So what am I missing? These aren't consistent. These aren't consistent beliefs. Islam and Volkanovski weigh the same thing. I got to get that out of the way. That actually is really going to be a piss off to a guy like me. 155 pounds and 145 pounds, it's the same thing. There will be no soft place to fall because I went up and he was bigger, or he came down and I was smaller. So you guys understand, for an athlete that's in shape and is used to doing it, to lose 10 pounds would take about 95 minutes. It's the same thing. Now, it does come down to who is more well-rounded. I mean, I know that we talk about that a lot. That talk has just been around since 1993, and it appears to not be going to leave. But there is not a debate where you have to go back and just make sure you watched a specific sequence of a specific match, which in this case was Islam versus Charles, so that then you have to admit how well-rounded he is. It's not like that. Volkanovski's beating everybody up on their feet. He's out-wrestled absolutely everybody. He's handled absolutely everybody's submissions holds. He's finished guys on the ground. I mean, he's done everything. There's not like a debate if you're looking at the body of work of which of those two athletes has shown and proven a propensity to be more well-rounded. That the jury is not out on that. That for sure would go to Volkanovski. So why is Islam the favorite? Because that doesn't matter. Even though that discussion has been around, it really doesn't matter. There's just something about nobody wanting to admit it doesn't matter. I don't know where the embarrassment or the shame would come with that. Arguing that Islam is the most well-rounded 155-pounder ever, go ahead and argue it. First off, no one's going to listen because that's boring as F. It is truly one of the most boring conversations to have to hear why a guy is well-rounded. Can this guy beat this guy or not? I do not care if this guy can punch and kick and grapple and claw and this guy can only jab. While using that one thing of a jab, can he beat this guy with all of his skills or not? Because there's nobody here that disagrees with me. This is not a debate about who has shown an ability to be more dynamic or more versatile between Volkanovski and Islam. But Islam is still the favorite. And all that we get from that is all that we need to get from it. And it's very fair and very reasonable that in our expertise of watching the sport, if somebody is more dominant in a skill that really matters, such as wrestling, they're going to win the fight. Doesn't matter who's dynamic. And that entire make sure you're dynamic and make sure you're versatile, I mean, just trace it back. Just trace it back to its inception. It came from guys who sucked at wrestling, wanting wrestlers to not be as good at wrestling. I mean, if you trace it back, though, that's what you will find. Some fighters would even come out and say, well, she's going to take me down and hold me there. She's going to take me down and hump me. Going to take me down and lay on me. He's going to take me down and blanket me. I mean, they would start throwing these things out. And they would do it as a way of talking the wrestler into becoming more versatile and more dynamic. Don't spend your time on your takedowns in your wrestling. Learn how to pass guard. Learn how to throw punches into kicks. I mean, not for nothing, like that's not really that bad of advice. That's all the stuff that I did and that's stuff that I believed. I'm just sharing with you. If you are more dominant in one of the aspects that matters, and this isn't the wrestler in me, this is the historian who's watched the sport. If you're a better boxer than that guy, it doesn't matter. If you're a better kicker than that guy, it doesn't matter. If you got a better rubber guard than that guy, it doesn't matter. If you are a better wrestler than that guy, it matters. It will change the fight. It has changed the fight since 1993. So sitting here and having an argument about who is more versatile and who is more dynamic and who is more well-rounded, I mean, just so you understand, like if you're selling tickets to that attraction, no one's coming. It is a boring and dull topic. Who cares? That's not what that gold belt represents. That's what the purple belt and the yellow belt and the red belt and the green belt, if you're in a gym that does those kinds of things, and the brown belt and the black belt represent. That will represent a master and an understanding of skills of increasing your base. The gold belt represents who can take what he's got, whatever that is, and beat this guy. Whatever he's got and whatever that is. So I would ask the question, though, because I do want to get it. Francis is the favorite over Jon because he's bigger. Now, that's of real size. Francis is going to walk into that ring, close to 30 pounds in the right way. Boy, Francis Ngannou, you're talking about steel right there. Going to walk in there with 30 pounds of steel. More than Jon Jones, but nowhere near as close to dynamic, but Francis is the favorite. Jon went from the youngest UFC champion of all time to the oldest current number one contender, but he's still not as old as Francis. And Jon is, according to people willing to part with their money, not likely to beat Francis. Okay, but those same people, I would surmise using that same deduction, have decided that Islam is going to win, even though they admit he's less dynamic, and he's barely bigger, 45 to 55. I mean, that's vastly different than a heavyweight division that is 205, and they're taking a 205-pounder in there, and you run that all the way up to 265. There's no gap like that. I get that Jon's closer to 240. I understand the whole thing, but there's no gap or even a percentage of your body weight. They're not even remotely close. But one argument says Francis and the bigger guy wins. The other argument says that Islam wins. All while we're in a search of finding out who is the more dynamic and well-rounded fighter. Why we can't make that debate stop if you just look at the examples that are on the board right now, today. You start to see that who's more dynamic and who's more well-rounded is a topic that will only come from a guy trying to charge you money to sign up for his instruction.